You wake up one morning, turn on the news, and see something strange. The US Treasury quietly buying massive amounts of gold and silver. No breaking news alert, no speeches, just a silent shift on the government's balance sheet. And then comes a whisper. Trump's team is preparing a pivot toward hard money. It sounds exaggerated, like internet conspiracy fuel. But the deeper you look, through the data, through international reserves, through policy drafts floating in DC, the pieces start to fit too neatly. Could it be that in 2026, America is laying the groundwork for a return to the age-old standard that built, and eventually broke, the global monetary system? Let's rewind the clock. Why this matters now. When Donald Trump hinted during his campaign that gold is real money, most took it as political theater. But here's what most people missed: the timing. By late 2025, the US dollar wasn't in crisis, but it was wobbling. Global central banks, from China to Poland, had quietly been buying record levels of gold. In fact, 2025 marked the highest annual central bank gold purchase in modern history, over 1,000 metric tons. And in the background, inflation had cooled, but trust hadn't recovered. People didn't believe the data. They believed their grocery bills. Trump's advisors, many of whom are gold bugs and monetary nationalists, saw this moment as a chance to reshape America's financial credibility. Not by printing more dollars, but by making those dollars harder again. The silver subplot. Now here's the twist nobody expected. It's not just about gold. Throughout 2025, silver premiums, the difference between market and physical price, exploded. Investors noticed massive unexplained withdrawals from the COMEX vaults. Industrial players complained of tight supply. Then, buried deep in a federal tender document from mid-2025, someone found procurement lines for strategic silver reserves. That means the government was quietly stockpiling physical silver. At the same time, institutional funds began launching American Precious Resiliency ETFs, funds built on physical allocation instead of paper contracts. Coincidence? Maybe. But every administration has its economic strategy hidden beneath the slogans, and this one seems to be playing the long game. The system you never see. Let's make sense of this. Right now, every US dollar in the world exists because of one mechanism: debt issuance. The Treasury borrows, the Fed manages liquidity, and the whole machine depends on confidence that the US can always repay, in dollars. But here's the fragile part. If confidence falls, the dollar's power shrinks, and Washington loses control. That is why a gold tether, even partial, could become a political weapon. Imagine announcing that new Treasury notes will be partially backed by bullion reserves stored at West Point and Fort Knox. Overnight, faith in the dollar could surge, especially abroad, granting Trump both bragging rights and leverage. Of course, do that wrong, and you could accidentally detonate the entire credit system. The uncomfortable math. Let's talk numbers, because this is where fantasy often dies. The US government currently owes around $35 trillion. Meanwhile, its total official gold holdings sit around 261 million troy ounces. Even if you revalued gold to $10,000 an ounce, far above today's price, you'd barely cover a tenth of the debt. So, a 100% gold-backed dollar? Impossible. But a tokenized link, say 5% bullion reserve for new high-value notes or for a digital dollar, that's plausible. In other words, Trump doesn't need to fully replace the dollar system. He just needs to make it look anchored again. A perception shift, not a total reform. Trump's strategic angle. Everything Trump does has two layers, the statement and the spectacle. He knows narratives move markets faster than numbers. So if the administration announced an audit, a bullion repatriation, or a Fort Knox restoration plan, public trust could spike before any gold even changes hands. But behind that announcement would be something bigger: leverage in global trade. If China keeps buying gold to escape dollar dependency, America can't just watch. A symbolic gold-silver framework could tell the world the US dollar is still the hardest currency on earth. And that message alone could be worth trillions in geopolitical confidence. The silver loop again. Silver is trickier. Its price is erratic, industrial demand is massive, and miners are struggling to keep up. But that volatility is exactly what makes it strategic. If the US government quietly accumulates silver reserves under the pretext of critical materials stockpiling, it kills two birds with one stone, secures industrial defense supply chains, and gains exposure to real assets. And guess what happens next? Retail investors notice. They start hoarding silver bars, coins, ETFs. The price shoots up. Whether or not there's a plan, perception fuels reality. By the time analysts confirm a coordinated buyout, the market has already rewritten itself. Quick pause here, because this is where things get murkier. If Trump really is setting up a hard money pivot, what happens to ordinary Americans? Does gold protect you, or is it already too late to buy in? And what about silver? Is it a hidden opportunity or another internet myth waiting to explode? Drop your take in the comments. I'd love to see where you land on this. And if you want to keep following how this unfolds through 2026, this is the part where you quietly tap that subscribe button, because we're digging deeper in real time. All right, back to it. The political theatre. Every administration has a story to sell. In the 1930s, FDR sold stability. In the 1970s, Nixon sold flexibility. Trump's message? Strength. If 2026 becomes the year of the hard dollar narrative, it won't be about economics, it'll be about image. A return to gold isn't just financial theatre, it's political symbolism. It tells voters, we're taking control back. It tells Wall Street, we're resetting rules on our terms. And it tells Beijing, we're not done yet. But symbolism cuts both ways. Once you imply that gold equals power, you invite scrutiny. Where is the gold? How much? And who really owns it? History has taught us how fast trust evaporates once you start asking those questions. The global chessboard. Outside the US, other players are moving. China has been dumping treasuries and hoarding gold. BRICS nations are exploring a commodity-linked settlement token. Even Europe's reserve banks are diversifying quietly. Now imagine Trump walks into that environment and says, America is backing its currency with real assets again. The global financial map changes overnight. The dollar could get stronger, but imports could crash. Debt would become more expensive, and in the process, ordinary people, the average saver, retiree, small business owner, would feel the consequences first. Because sound money, while honest, is also merciless. The reality check. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every president since Nixon has flirted with the idea of revisiting gold, and every one of them walked away. Why? Because the modern economy runs on liquidity, not metal. Money today is code, motion, and confidence, not weight. Returning even partially to metal isn't just difficult, it's almost paradoxical. But that doesn't mean it's pointless. Symbolic anchors can reset behavior. They can make the illusion of stability feel real again. That may be Trump's real play. Not a gold standard, but a gold narrative. Where this could lead. By the end of 2026, here's what's realistic. You may see new bullion-backed Treasury instruments, digital token trials referencing gold baskets, and defense-related silver reserves expanding. Prices will swing, rumors will explode, and the media will mix hype with half-truths. Through it all, one thing will remain constant: trust. That's the real currency Trump is trying to manipulate. It's not gold versus paper. It's belief versus disbelief. And whoever controls belief controls value. So here's the question we'll leave hanging tonight. If tomorrow morning Trump stood on stage and announced a partial return to gold and silver, would the markets rise because it's real, or because everyone wants it to be real? That's the magic of money. It works as long as we all agree it does. Maybe the real secret plan isn't about metal at all. Maybe it's about reminding the world that belief itself is the last hard asset left.